Welcome back, esteemed speakers, guests, faculty members, and my fellow batchmates. I, Orghodeep,
And I, Komolika,
students of PGDM at National Insurance Academy, are honored to take you forward through the third panel discussion, where we shall delve into the theme Business Schools Forging the Leaders of Tomorrow.
the panel discussion will be moderated by Dr. Vikas Srivastav, Dean of Programs and ONGC Chair Professor of Finance, IIM Lucknow. The experts in the panel are Ms. Amrita Maheshwari Pani, Associate Director, Sales, Turtle Mint, Ms. Priya Vasudevan, President, Talent and Enterprise Services, Liberty General Insurance Company Limited, Mr. Shrikant Wavre, Senior Vice President HR, Shima General Insurance Company, and Mr. Sriram Narasimham, Senior Vice President Operations and HR, Intellect Design Arena Limited. I request the experts to kindly form the dais as we briefly introduce them.
Dr. Vikas Srivastava is the Dean of Programs and ONGC Chair Professor of Finance, IIM Lucknow. He is an MBA, PhD, and was a doctoral research fellow of the European Union at the Helsinki School of Economics and has attended various programs on banking and financial services support at Stanford Graduate School of Business, California. He has an extensive scholarly portfolio that includes more than 24 international research papers recognized by ABDC and ABS rankings, a comprehensive book on project finance published by Oxford University Press, and a detailed monograph on financing infrastructure released by Reserve Bank of India. Additionally, he was also distinguished with the Macro Research Award for the year 2013 by the Indian Institute of Banking and Finance.
Ms. Amrita Maheshwari Pani has a comfortable 17 years of experience in sales, distribution strategy, and project management, and has successfully managed pan-India portfolios in various reputable organizations like Reliance General Insurance, DCB Bank, Reliance Health, TransUnion Civil, and Turtle Mint. Along with being an alum of our distinguished college NIA Pune and IIM Kozhikode, she is also an active member of FICCI Flow Mumbai chapter, Women Entrepreneur Wing of FICCI.
Ms. Priya Vasudevan is the President of Talent and Enterprises Services at Liberty General Insurance. A pharmacist by education with an MBA in Human Resources from Mumbai University, she has over 20 years of rich work experience in leadership roles across various reputed organizations and diverse sectors. For her contribution in innovative HR practices, Ms. Vasudevan has been honored with the National Award for Excellence in Training and HRD by the Indian Society of Training and Development.
Mr. Shrikant Wavre is a Senior Vice President of HR at Shima General Insurance Company. He has a prestigious 25 years of experience in promoting strategic and innovative human resources, employee relations, and change management. An alum of SIBM Pune and Symbiosis Law College Pune, he has the impressive distinction of winning 5 global awards for creative and innovative business value additions on HRIS, organization design, talent engagement, and learning and development front. His research papers and articles have also been published on ABDC, Web of Science, and Scopus ranked journals.
Lastly, we have here with us Mr. Sriram Narasimhan, Senior Vice President at Intellect Design Arena Limited. As a seasoned talent management professional, he boasts a career spanning over 25 years steering talent and business operation for Intellect AI. Mr. Narasimhan also holds the distinction of being the inaugural HR head for AIG System Solutions, where he has played a pivotal role in establishing AIG's Offshore Development Center in India. I now kindly invite my colleagues to formally greet them and present the planters.
Thank you so much. I now kindly request Dr. Srivastav to commence the discussion. Additionally, if time permits, the panel speakers will answer queries from the audience at the end of the discussion.
Thank you so much for warmly welcoming all of us into this session. Just as a starting point to all of you, I much before I became a full-time academic, I used to be training bankers, and most of the time we had this concept of asset liability management in banking, which is called as ALM, right? So ALM was kind of very big for us in banking, but for trainers, the biggest problem was after lunch management, which we also called as ALM. So this is a session just after lunch. My only request to all of you is that we'll promise ourselves one thing for the session, and I'll try to do it myself on the stage, that I'm not going to pick up my mobile and keep on looking at it, right? The other thing is, what we have discussed amongst all of us is that we are going to keep it short and simple, right? We have a structure amongst us. We are going to speak for 5-10 minutes, and then most of us will express our opinions in a broad range of 3 or 4 topics, which I'll slowly and briefly, organically introduce you. And then we will kind of try to wind off that in approximately 40-50 minutes. We would want to hear more from you, and we would then leave the floor open for some of your questions. In case you have nothing to ask or nothing to say, it gives us a lot of free time. We'll be happily winding it off in 50 minutes. So the ball is also not just in our court, the ball is also primarily on your court as well. So, how do I kick off a discussion which is importantly a big part of this HR conference? And it has been conceived because it is putting a ball back to where it all started from, in the sense that what are the business schools doing, and how do they forge the leaders for tomorrow? So, the starting point of any discussion on the role of business schools for forging leaders for tomorrow, I want to make an opening statement, and then I'll go down to my panelists around what their views on in here are. So, it is usually the government policies that spur the market, and then it leads to the individual choices that gets feeded out of those government policies. That's how businesses generally run. But there is an extraordinary power of ideation, production, and distribution, and business is therefore best placed actually to bring the change at a scale which the society needs to, right? So business is amazingly important to do, to bring that change in the society. Now, without leaders who are willing to challenge norms and conceive of a new vision for the corporation, business will be just stuck in status quo. So there are two views to look at business school. One way to look at a business school is that we train people to the skill sets that are straight away required by the industry, and they maintain the status quo for that particular industry. Another way of looking at a business school is that we create leaders for tomorrow, which brings me to one of those most important things that I've been working, speaking, and writing on, which is called as a knowing doing gap. You see, every one of us in our personal and professional lives, if you open the internet, it is full of wisdom from everywhere on what to do and what not to do in our personal lives and professional lives. But the problem is that when we come down to do it, many of us don't do the things which we actually believe in. And I want you to know that a larger portion of this knowing doing gap is because we don't have ever time in our lives to internalize anything that we are doing. For example, students, the institution that I represent, the Indian Institute of Management, students would come in, and similar would be the case with all of you guys sitting in here. You would go after trimester and trimester of heavy courses, quizzes, examinations. I just noticed that there was a quiz in between the lunch hour, which gave me a feeling that I'm back at campus as a dean, throwing down the quizzes at people's throats. But then the problem in here is that we anyways don't have time to reflect on what we are learning. And if we don't reflect on what we are learning, we are never going to do it, right? You will just keep on maintaining the status quo for whatever organizations you work for. And to change that status quo, it brings me to another concept of mine, which is very important for me, which is called as theory and practice. All of us learn on the jobs, right? For example, I was on deputation to State Bank of India Project Finance for quite a number of years, and I knew how to write an appraisal note, what kind of an appraisal note would get clearance from a credit committee. I knew the things that I had to do on the job. But the problem is when things around me change, for example, a global financial crisis struck, if I would not know how to make a stochastic model, if I would not know what stress test to apply to it, I cannot come out with a solution. Mind you, I have observed over almost 3 decades of my working life, people who reach the top, they need a dash of theory. And this is business schools are a best place to give that theory and to make you leaders for lifelong. So this is a challenging opening statement from my side. And I go back to all my panelists, starting from Priya first, and then I'll come down this side. That do you think that in this year or in this century that we are sitting in, the objectives by which business schools are run and the objectives of a corporation are aligned? My basic question is this, that are all of us on the same page in terms of what we give to our students? So Priya, we'll start off from you.
Thank you, Dr. Vikas. That's a very insightful question. Um, I'm not sure whether the objectives are aligned, and I think that could be subject of a deeper discussion. But there is certainly a relationship that exists between the industry and the academia, and the nature of that relationship is very symbiotic. Uh, while the nature is symbiotic, however, like in every relationship, there is a underlying power dynamics that play out between the industry and the academics. So I think it's important. So sometimes when employees come for interviews, I see many of the employees operating from a very I need this job, I need to get this job, and hence the up and down in terms of power is very imbalanced. While I always feel that just like organizations, just like employees need good organizations to grow and thrive their career, similarly, organizations need very good employees for their own survival, not even sustenance, but for their own survival. So it's very important that the power equation need to get equalized in the real sense. While we may say whatever we say, but inherently the power equation is not equal, is what I feel. So hence the relationship between industry and academia is that of needs to be of a symbiotic nature, which it is. Um, Objective alignment can be the next step, but once this alignment happens, that we both need each other, that is when the objectives get aligned. But I must say that in the last couple of years, I'm noticing more and more, like Dr. Shivastava was referring, that there is a very important role being played by the regulator. And so there are I would say, three corners to this triangle: the industry, the academia, and also the regulator. And there needs to be a tandem working between the three. I mean, that's, I would say, my opening remarks on this. So.
So good afternoon, everybody. Hope awake. Keeping how practical
and you must be awake for Amrita, because she's the alumnus of your first batch. So, so you must be very, very. You must be listening to her at least more sincerely.
So the point is how theoretical and how practical, right? As we all know, the business landscape across industry, not only insurance, is extremely dynamic right now. So change is inevitable, and whether we are ready or not, and whether the B school are actually making us ready or not, right? Let me put it that way. So the thing is that the kind of theory sessions you get in any B schools are very much prepare you for the skill. Right now, the industry also need a right kind of mindset. The more we expect a person to come prepare, it is always learning on work, right? We can't expect somebody to learn everything and come and day one ready, go run and ready for the grind. But definitely that mindset will help. So the question is, are you ready for that mindset? Are we structuring our courses, structuring our interactions in a campus, which prepare the students with that right kind of mindset to adapt, create, and carve a different world which are expected from us. Yeah. So that is my point.
So good afternoon. Thank you. It's always been a pleasure to be here. So drawing on the same lines, right? So um, I think the intent and the purpose of an industry academia to be aligned is always there. Otherwise, many of us wouldn't be here on this dais. But then the challenge is business also evolves, and the speed of that changes from time to time. Today, when you're looking at what makes this industry move in such a speed, clearly technology comes into play. And of course, there are other elements like the geopolitical situation, the demand versus supply, and so on and so forth. But there is a significant part that the academia and the students will have to play, right? Because while the industry evolves, the industry is also coming to terms with some realities, and not very many institutions are in an R&D play who are actually ahead and who actually determine and decide what the next course should be. So if you're not in one of those institutions, clearly you're on a catching up game. So the onus is a lot more on the academia and the individuals. So this mindset is somebody has to teach me so a professor needs to be standing in front of me to imagine a professor standing along and aside with you, right? So there is a co-learning, co-creation. Now, if you get into that kind of a mindset, that's the only way that can start moving. But we're not getting into a preaching thing. But clearly, yes, the intent is there. The speed of evolution is so high that we need to recognize there's a lot more to cover.
Good afternoon, everyone. I think I will use the diplomatic term which has been given to us by a COVID, which is it's evolving, and it will always remain as evolving. The relation between the business schools and the industry. The reason is very simple. I feel there are some institutes which are far ahead, and sometimes they are leading the industry also. They are giving the talent, they are giving the leaders which are actually leading the industry. And other institutes start copying that particular framework and start executing this. Other than that, if I would say that what is differentiate or what is a common between the industry and academic is the human uniqueness. What industry look in today's context is the intelligence. The business intelligence is the survival model because the industry will continuously face the change. It will keep on evolving in the dynamic external situation which continuously is evolving. And every year, earlier it was a decade problem, now it is a 5 years, everything is changing. So what is required, how that intelligence is created in each stream, it is not an intelligence as a one trait which we are looking forward to. What we are looking forward to from the academics is how that intelligence is imbibed, because today's vision for the intelligence is the speed, the sustainability, how you can give me a smart solutions now. It is not a long term. Now they are looking for a smart solution. So that's the approach which we are looking from the schools versus what was in the history. Maybe 10 years down the line, the intelligence definitions will be completely different. And that's why I said it's evolving kind of.
Thank you so much. This really brings me because the opening remarks were such, if you would have carefully noticed, that it broadly followed four themes that we will be taking up now in the subsequent discussions. One is a bigger theme, which is about how do you teach students who are in the age group of 20, 21 to let's say 26, 27 mindset, which the business needs. Maybe you are very qualified, maybe you are supremely intelligent, but over the years, I have observed that all that mindset and all that intelligence leads you nowhere if you don't have that mindset which takes you further. So the first question is around this. The second question, which is a bigger elephant in the room, which we cannot hide, which I was listening to the other discussions during the day, is the impact that technology is giving to us. There was this interesting point which came up in the morning that almost all of us, typically the younger generation, we are moving in organizations from being earlier when we used to work for relationships. Now, most of it is working towards transactions. So how does this change, this technology change? And now, because the technology has changed the way we look at work, can we kind of come back and look at the renewed competencies that are required now for the business school students. And then finally, the bigger question is how do we bring it back into the classroom? And how do we address these issues which are coming up now? How do you guys, when you join and come to the industry, you feel more relaxed, you think that you are more productive, and the industry kind of responds back to you? So I'll start off with the bigger question. We are lucky to have Priya here, who has spent almost 20 years being an HR professional across the newer generation industries, the older generation industries like pharma, and now she is into insurance, and she has seen a gamut for the last 2 decades. So I just want you to ask, and your initial 5 to 7 minutes on this is that how do we address their concerns in our organizations? Typically, we speak about these things as I'm not a big fan of those terms actually, IQs and EQs and all that stuff. I think that those are also kind of now more lip service kind of terms. But then, in your way, how do we address their concerns into organizations now, and what do you look into it?
Um, I'm often asked this question about younger generation, newer generation coming into the workforce, and how does organizations deal with them? What is in store for the newer generation? So, firstly, I feel that what do you call as new generation or younger generation? That differs in where you are in your life. So, from where I am sitting, possibly a 30-year-old would be a younger generation, but somebody who's some many of you would.
And at 50, I consider myself young. I'm 55, but I think I'm younger. So it's a change of perspective.
I agree. So, but one thing I've noticed across industries, across, let's say, but what we call a generation is also shrinking. Earlier, a decade would be a generation. Now it is few years, less than 5 years, which is actually a generation. So, but I've noticed commonly that what a new entrant into the industry needs at any given point of time are basically fundamentals. And year after year, when I onboard new joinees from campus, I think that, and I'm sure it holds within you as well, the topmost concern is what is going to be my role. I mean, it can't be as fundamental as this. And believe me that many organizations kind of are very hazy about that in the beginning. There could be an approach like, let's see how you are, how you say deliver in the first 6 months, how you learn, how you grow, then we decide the fit. But the new entrants are not excited about it, they're not happy about it. So in many occasions I've had to kind of go back and actually start defining the role right at the beginning and right at the time of hire, and not 6 months down the line. So the role clarity is very important. The deliverables of the role. So, for example, when you enter organizations, do you have KPIs? Are the KPIs sharp? Is it something that you can control? Is somebody, maybe your manager, checking in with you every quarter on your KPIs and deliverables? Because what gives joy to an employee always at any time is success. And how are organizations enabling that is through role clarity, KPI creation timely, check-in with manager-employee check-ins so that the performance kind of grows. That's the first bit. The second bit is, I think any of you who come into organizations are very keen to know what is my career path? And are we addressing that in very clear terms? Is there a path carved out for all roles, at least a certain level and above? And how do I reach there? What are some of the structured development programs that I can utilize? We have this at Liberty. The third, and I think which one doesn't talk about very much, especially with the target segment of population, is compensation. I think that is very fundamental. So, are we competitive with respect to compensation? And for a student, for a new generation who's coming into workforce, is already burdened by, say, loans and responsibilities and starting a new life and all that. So is the compensation competitive enough? That's the third bit. And the last one, which actually combines the whole IQ EQ piece, is what I feel one doesn't learn enough in academia is the whole belongingness. So, what are organizations doing to create belongingness from between the employee and the organization? Now, organization could be brick and mortar. Hence, you don't have a feeling for the organization. But uh, organizations are also organisms. And if the metaphor of organisms holds true, then how do you create a relationship between these two individuals? And are there enough celebrations, enough one-on-ones, enough social interaction? Because at the end of the day, all of us are social beings. So, what is the social glue that is holding employees together across generations, whether new entrants or already tenured employees? So, in my opinion, when it comes to new generation, younger generation, these fundamentals don't change, and that is where organizations need to double down and keep it relevant all the time. That's what I feel.
Thank you so much, Priya. Just a follow up question that came to my mind. I would not hesitate to ask that follow up question. You spoke about two things. What caught my eye was the stuff about compensation, which is very important to people who are just passing out of business schools, and a sense of belongingness. In your opinion, over the years, has it changed? That means that when people would join 20 years back, they searched out for a sense of belongingness, and now they search out for compensation, and if the compensation is not adequate, belongingness would never come.
Yeah, I think that's a deep one. And one of the career anchors, Edgar Schein's career anchors, if you studied, one of the career anchors that has shifted considerably is the lifestyle. So when I give this psychometric test over and over, I see lifestyle coming as a big career anchor. And to fund the lifestyle, of course, you need the compensation. And expectations can be more, and we all have the right to expect. However, what organizations do much more now than earlier is how do we manage those expectations by looking at the market. So, compensation benchmarking at a market level is very important because that is fair. Because the organization is not thinking just out of the blue and saying, okay, this is the figure that I'll pay to all my new entrants. But is it benchmarked? Is it sufficient? Is it role based? All of those internal benchmarking is done, external benchmarking is done, and then a fair figure is arrived at. So that is.
Yeah, but, Amrita, you want to add on to this, that from your time to this time, has this focus on compensation being more, or was it less in your time?
Focus and conversion will always be there, sir. Because the last month, I think I was during morning breakfast. Somebody is telling one of the student, ma'am, the last month itself, it is all about the placement, and it is right, right. It
Yeah.
is all about the placement. I'm not denying that fact, but somewhere,
But my question was this: that is it about placement, or is it about the money that you get out of that placement?
so placement, the only thoughts right now, if you ask about the Gen Z, right?
Yeah.
The thought is that, what is the package, right?
Okay.
As in a previous panel, somebody said that, the highest package providing company will come first, right?
Okay.
That is how it is.
And just how do you look at this from a recruiter's point of view? Any one of you can go first.
I think the entire recruitment gamut is changing. If you look, the next generation is more of a rational behavior, and they are looking for a transactional relationship. They are not looking for a long term relationship. And the expectation definition, what Priya has mentioned, is exactly right. And there is a right for everyone to change their expectation. The kind of a thinking which is generating is that I have an intelligence, I have a competence, I have a skill. So what I am demanding or what I am expecting is a worth of my output. And that feeling is really emerging in each and every domain and each and every student, and even in the professional or the corporate life, that particular feeling is emerging. So I'm sure this is a change, and change is ought to happen. And that sometimes it's good because that gives the employer also a fundamental right to demand the objectives and the goals and the performance from the employee. So there is nothing wrong. The only thing is, and the question probably will be, what is the right where these expectations should have the full stop? Probably that needs to be evolved.
What about you, Mr. Shriram? Yeah.
Sure. Interesting question. So this is like who blinks first, right?
Okay.
Right.
So the lesson is that recruiters tell you that don't blink first. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So the scenarios are very different, right? You don't have to necessarily be the best paymaster to attract the best talent. If that's so simple, then I think many of the industries would just struggle and close shop and go on. If you have a purpose that you can narrate, and if you go to the right places where individuals look at that purpose, they buy in it, they visualize your next 5 year, 6 year, or long term strategy that or the role that they will play. And that's largely the role of a recruiter and, of course, the organization's pitch. And the reputation of this organization also is built through the process, right? So that's why we still have those alumni connects. Now, let's say hypothetically we hire somebody from a strong, let's say NI, we've been coming here for like 10, 12 years now, right? So every year when we pick up, we deliver a promise. We live the promise, right? That's exactly why I'm able to come back here. My organization is still able to come and pick up some of the best talent in the country in these institutes, right? But then if I can't make that pitch, and if I don't sell that purpose, and if I can't help them visualize their role, then it's a compensation game. So that's how we look at it.
That's very, very, very well put. So I think that overall, what I've observed over the last decade and a half at NIM as well is that it's mostly the alum connect, as you rightly point out, because organizations keep on coming back year after year, and the story filters down. So though we can, from an outsider's point of view, say that we have become more transactional and we are not looking at relationships, but deep down inside, the students who are applying to companies who come on the campuses, they are at some point deep down inside their minds, they are also looking at some kind of a relationship that they can forge. They can have the comfort of their own employees working in that organizations, and I think it makes a difference in here. And this brings me to the second bigger theme, and
So
this
just
is
to
with you.
add a point
Yeah.
over here, I'm being into sales and strategy for all these years, and adding to this point of attachment, I think it's bound to come at a point of time, because when you're part of a team, and specifically a winning team, you continuously achieving something, creating something in the space, and that passion is so high that the package sometimes take a backseat in that
Absolutely.
scenario. It
Absolutely.
may not be in the very beginning when you passing a joining the organization, but as you're part of an organization and you see the ups and down together with organization, that bound to happen at
Yeah.
some point.
Yeah. So just remember, in the sense that uh, package is also a function of risk and return. There are some jobs where you take more risk and therefore the returns are more. So if you are sitting on the desk of a bank trading, you take more risk, but your career spans are short. But if you become a corporate banker and you spend your time in branches and lending, you take lesser risks and therefore your career becomes longer. But then this brings me to the second point, which directly is to you, Mr. Narasimhan, is that uh, can you give us some few industry examples where you feel that we need to rapidly, business schools ramp up our preparedness and adaptation to tech disruptions, which are coming far, and we can't keep pace with it any longer. And there are so many terminologies floating around.
Sure. Thank you very much, Gus, for that question. I think it makes a lot of relevance, especially to this audience, right? Like I said, we're all still learning in the process. I'll just take an example, right? How many of us still believe data science is a very hard skill, right? 2 years ago, we were bleeding, wage bills were just hitting the roof just because we want to hire some of the best data scientists. Can you believe in the last 8 months, their jobs have become redundant, right? So that's how technology moves. Now, what happens to an organization? The reason I know this is clearly not a technology institute, but I just want to begin this here, right? Now, if you play this back, there's something that's happening in the business that's driving these changes, right? Like how technology changes and transforms, it puts a lot of pressure back on the business for them to change its ways of, doing its core business. Now, there are certain skills that also emerge in these disruptions. Now, I'm just pulling a couple of them just for the benefit of the audience, right? We just came out of fresh org design for a platform. So basically, Intellect is a product organization on the insurance and banking space. We also do platforms, and we have a cutting-edge AI platform. Now, this we believe can change it, a lot of things on how the business evolves, right? So it's a global standard platform. Now, and this is how the future is. And people who know companies like Salesforce should be able to relate to this. The stock standard skills that one would use for a services kind of an organization to a product, IT product organization, to a platform organization has seen a massive change. Technology disruption has actually helped the business schools and those students to pick up, it comes to their advantage. You know why? Technology is getting redundant, but the users of the technology are becoming smarter. All right? And we need those smart talent to be part of the core business. So you kind of stand in front of a prospect or a customer. So you bring this beautiful mix of, at the end of the day, no matter what the technology is, it's a business, and you guys stand a clear advantage there. Now, what caused it? The technology disruption caused it. Now, who's benefiting? The business schools and the graduates are benefiting, right? This is how simple I can put it. Now, what happened with the data science has also created a lot of new roles for people, right? As we were talking, some of the roles were, customer success. It's been there in the market for some time. But then we are looking at forward engineers. And forward engineers need not necessarily be technologists. These are people who have understood a particular platform in a particular way, right? So they are able to bring in the best of their, business school learnings. We need people who are business savvy, who can actually connect to customers. Then we have prospect engagement leads. When you say prospect engagement leads, we need talent who has their eyes and ears on the floor. They understand the business, they understand the trend. They kind of tag along with the prospect through various prospecting to sales life's journey, so that the ball doesn't get dropped and they continuously stay aligned. They then drop it at a point where you have consulting. These consulting people are what? Again, they are not technologists. They are folks who understand business problems. They're able to be through, they demonstrate extreme customer empathy. They're not going to sell, but they're going to empathize. They're going to talk on behalf. They're going to think on behalf and act on behalf of the customer. So these roles have evolved now. These weren't there until about a year or 2 years ago, right? So there is a lot of advantage come to play. We just need to be cognizant of how some of these things work. And the best thing that can happen to B schools is when students also take this additional measure to understand, before I sit for an interview, what kind of an organization, what is their business all about, right? How do these guys make money? And do I see a role for myself there? Because the gap is so wide today, even when we do internships. If you look at the organization, that the pyramid is now squeezing, because with technology coming in, we don't need so many people, but we still need talent of a different type. So the pyramid is squeezing that nobody has a time to keep, do preaching and teaching even for the interns. So at a base level, interns are required to join organizations with interest and a degree of knowledge and curiosity, and we expect them to be fast learners, so that we don't have the luxury of time, and we don't have the luxury of the bandwidth also. Things are rapidly changing. Jobs that were done typically by large teams are now done by what we call as a triad, because we have fused certain roles there, right? So in my latest discussion with the team, what we had as multiple roles in an AI organization, where we had an AI engineer, we had an ML engineer, we had an ML ops engineer, we had a data scientist and a prompt engineer. We said we don't need so many, because first and foremost, we don't even know whether these roles will be in vogue for the next 1 year or 8 months or 2 years. Number two, we just can't go on hiring, because these talent is not available. Even today, some of the best AI talent is still not there. While everybody loves to put that on their resume, we are still not there. The third thing is we want to be independent and secure ourselves from the market volatilities. So we said we'll now go full stack. Now, what is full stack? We are fusing certain roles. It's not technology. For example, a prompt engineer need not be a technologist. A data scientist is not a technologist, please mind you, right? So when you fuse roles, we are looking at talent that can quickly adopt, have this learning aptitude, and is able to kind of, see the value and deliver the 10x value for the organization. And they would fit into my earlier jargon of a customer success or an engagement lead or a consultant or a champion or an evangelist, because they would naturally get into a very different career trajectory.
That's quite a brilliant take, in the sense that it kind of also tells us the fact that maybe the jargon around technology is so much, but what we need to do at a business school is perhaps understand that the industry is looking at people who understand it smartly and can tell them business solutions around it in a manner which is fast paced. But just going ahead, any one of you can speak. I don't know which one of you would take that lead. Is that how do we bring that smartness in understanding technology down here to the business school? Do we offer courses which are jointly done with the industry, or do we encourage them to learn technology and bring those applications into our classroom? How do we go about doing it? Mr. Vabre, yeah, you can go for it.
Sure, I think one of the way out for this probably is the collaborations of the technology versus the business school. That is one thing which has to happen, because unless there is a collaboration happening with the technology in this, because one of the need which will be for the future, up till now, manager or a leader role was restricted to three complexities. One was the functional complexity, another was the financial complexity, and third was the human complexity. But if you throw the light on the last decade, the technology complexity has taken a front seat at this moment. Everyone has to be a technology savvy at this moment. And that's where that complexity is also very, very essential for everyone to understand. So, what I say today's world is the business administration is not required. Administration is taken care by the technology today. What is required is the business intelligence, collaboration with the technology to find out the smart approach to move fast so that we get the right results out of this. That is what is looking forward to, and that's where the best approach is to start collaborating with the technology. Each individual has to have some curriculum which is related to his own specialized era, which gives him the insights about the technology. Every leader doesn't need to know everything of the technology, but if he knows what is coming out of that technology and how effectively I can use that for my business results, that is what is very, very important.
So I would say that, to add to what Shrikant was saying, that while we can increase the industry academic connect, but it would be a great idea for students to be immersed more or to be exposed more into the industry through, let's say, internships. Yes, but it needn't be so long, like a month, because you don't have so much time. So it would, I mean, through any means, but couple of days, 2 days, 3 days, to be immersed and exposed, to be aware about what is happening in different industry. It is one thing to read about it and listen to it, but it is one thing to actually witness it and be and build your awareness. I think skills for students, especially, skills come later. Awareness need to come first. So when you're aware of the environment, that is when you get interest, and that is when you see that, oh, the work world is so diverse, and I hence need to kind of shift, to pivot, maybe attract to some kind of role or some kind of function. So the question for me largely is, how do we increase this exposure? I don't have an answer, but it's still a question. What about you?
Yeah, just by adding to you. So initially, when I started my journey, that time the industry concern on sales and distribution side is that how we reach tier 2, tier 3, and how we can make our product simplified, how the sales journey can be easier for customer. These are the talking point, right? Now, the talking point is consumer behavior, because the data is available, right? Now the discussion is that how the customer want to purchase. Is he really moving from a agency to affinity products? Is he really moving from a bank assurance to a self-directed or assisted, kind of journey, sales journey? So the question is to understand that, is the pattern change? The technology, obviously, there is an understanding for Gen Z is more than our generation. While I'm saying our generation, it is a bit nostalgic sitting here. I never feel like, bit old here. But then the Gen Zs are more equipped with the technology. The understanding of, how that technology is impacting the current scenario, be it underwriting, distribution, selling, recruiting, retaining customer as well as employee. That is what is needless to say, that has to be understood from a point of a student while you are joining an industry. The industry never expect everybody, the person coming to joining your company, to learn everything and come, right? There are certain things which only at job you can learn. But definitely when you're coming to a organization, going for a role, the understanding of consumer, the understanding how the sales happening, and if it is directed a certain way to underwrite a particular product, why it is so. So that understanding of technology is very critical.
Yeah, that's a fair point. And I come back to you, Mr. Babre, with something which is which bothers me no end actually, is that there's, with all that disruptions which is happening, and we discussed a bit about compensation and the role of career building and stuff like that. You see, many of the students who kind of want to join the workforce from now on, there are two kinds of people actually. One who have a little bit of an experience of a couple of years, and they have learned something in their first jobs, and they have a strong value belief that this is what is required to succeed. And then there are some kind of students who are really fresh and who are very enthusiastic, and they want to join the industry, and they have high hopes of what they are learning. Over the years, I have found out that you see, there has been a lot of focus on presentation, verbal skills, non-verbal skills, communication skills, presentation skills. And don't get me wrong, but I have this belief that many people feel that if your envelope is okay, they don't work really hard on the competencies that they carry inside. And I have a belief somewhere that over the years, I have met students across, like people who passed out in 90s and 2000s. I have seen that people who don't have that core competencies inside them, they don't really have a very long career. You can be successful for 10, 15 years, and then you kind of taper off towards the end. So my question to you is that in this, all that is happening and all that we have discussed before, what are the 5 or 6 key competencies that you think every student should have if they're planning for a career of next 20, 25 years?
Very interesting question today morning. I think during inauguration also, this was one of the question which is came across. How should we target for a particular competencies? So I think there are 4 or 5 key competencies which I strongly feel is emerging out and which is expected that business schools should start focusing on also. The first one I'm already saying, and which I will again reiterate on, that it's the business intelligence. The MBA or the academics is giving you the business insights, but how you can convert that insights into the intelligent, and probably your projects, your the classroom works, initiatives that should demonstrate those particular things, because you may not have on the job work experience immediately, but at least you those should get reflected. That's the most important thing. Why business intelligence is important? Because the space of a change is so fast today. What the examples he has given today, I will give you a one classical example. A 2 year back, I met one of the US based R&D engineer who is working for the Alexa development. And I asked him, what are the key challenges today you're facing in Alexa? He said, the biggest challenge which we faced in Alexa today, that Alexa can answer the question till the 7th level. Now, 7th level, you're getting an answer. He said, that's where we are stuck today. After 2 years, I met him last month. He said, Alexa is answering the question now till the 12th level. So the more deep you are getting, the more deep. So that 7 to 12th is the change in the intelligence. And that is the value addition which is required in today's world. The example which is 7, today the job which has been paid, very, very high, in 2 years' time, that job may be the lowest in the market, or the people may be losing that particular job. So anyone who is joining with the emotional attachment, and I will keep this competency only, and I will still survive in this world, it is not possible. What you need to develop is a business intelligence, and business intelligence itself is a dynamic term. It will keep on changing based on the market response, market requirement, or the leadership which you create in the market. If you are the leader and if you create that kind of a thing, it's wonderful. That's what we will do. There was another question came today morning that, the 20% leaders will get placed, 80% will no. What is the connection between the technology and a human is very, very interesting phenomena to know. What's happening today is that we all are talking about this disruptive word. I'm sorry, but I little take hate about this word. Why are we not talking about technology for a collaboration purpose? Wonderful example Sriram has given. How technology is creating more and more job. if we are ready to upgrade ourselves, we are ready to upskill ourselves. You know, the terminology called is artificial intelligence. Any artificial intelligence, machine learning, or blockchain technology, whatever you take, it is a second step. First step is always your intelligence. The brain cannot be replaced by the technology. It will come closer to the brain and technology will come closer to each other, but the human uniqueness will still remain as a leader in the market. If human experiences something, then only he is going to create something. That's why that intelligence is very, very important. Second, which I said, I hate the word disruptive, because technology is not for a disruption, technology is for a collaboration. The human technology collaboration is the second competence which is very, very important for you. As I said, this is becoming the most important complex dimension of any successful manager or a leader. He has to work with the technology. Technology, our apps are changing every month, they are getting upgraded. Technology will keep on dynamically changing. Unless you collaborate with the technology, you are ahead in the learning, you are ahead and you are understanding the technology, things will not change. For like the prompt engineering, which you said, data analysis, which you said, it is changing. The depth of that is changing, and that's why the technology is also changing, and we also need to understand that particular thing. If I hire a data scientist today, and he just want to do a similar kind of a data scientist job for next 3 years, why will his salary get increased? Why will his compensation will get increased? Unless he upgrade, upskills and reach that Alexa 7th level to 12th level. Why will he do that? And that's why it is very, very important that we should proactively understand what will be the future demands which is coming from the market. The third and most important competency in today's world is there is ample to refer to. There is ample to refer to, but do we know what to refer to? The gap which he said, doing and knowing. So that is very important. The information intelligence, that competence is very, very important. From a management information system, we are changing the world completely to the information intelligence today. We need to have an information intelligence, that too very fast. I should know what is relevant for me, what is right for me, which is going to yield me effective results from this particular information. The human attention span is gone from a 12-second to a 9-second. So within that, if I have to want some customer, some consumer, I have to influence someone, it is very essential for me to know what information I want to project. And the final one and the fourth one which I want to speak about, and which is very, very important for all of you, the world is changing. The world is changing based on the technology. So the visibility which you all have to create, so the personal visibility, how you are creating your own personal visibility through internet, through Facebook, through LinkedIn, whatever maybe it is approach, or that one page resume you are taking. That personal visibility, the creative, innovative ways to create my own personal visibility, my own personal brand in the market is very, very essential. It's going to carry a huge weightage in the future. So I strongly feel the curriculum which is required from the future academic purpose will need these 4 competencies as a part of their syllabus. There has to be some touch on this so that they are aware of this, and when they come to the industry, they start executing these particular parameters. And the 4th competency is very important. From institute itself, they should start executing it. The visibility quotient, which is very important.
Thank you, Mr. Vavre. This is pretty interesting. But just Priya, from your side, because you have been testing these competencies over years, how do you test them? Question number 1. And question number 2 is that, do you think that if these guys who are going out into the market, they keep on learning lifelong, they actually build new competencies over a period of time?
I think, Dr. Vikas, you have asked the question to the wrong person. One of the reasons, because I myself have been a little, let's say, disillusioned with the whole competency frameworks and competencies per se. Because, and I have asked myself why am I disillusioned, is because they don't hold steady. And organizations, at some point, especially in stable industries, invested so much effort and resources to creating a competency framework collectively, culling them out, and then defining it, defining levels, and then creating development programs, then measuring employees on that. I mean, there is a whole host. It's almost like a factory which went into it. But very soon they became obsolete. And that's when, especially when I kind of moved industries, I found that uh, it's not very while I mean it provides a base, but it doesn't hold steady for a longer time. So what holds steady? I think one of the competencies that I personally like in employees, especially new entrants and even senior ones, which I test for, is comfort with ambiguity. And I don't know how many of you are engineers, but I have seen this competency very less in engineers because they're so used to logical, analytical approach. So it has taken a lot of energy from the organization side to kind of get them to be flexible, and not everything can be measured, and some things you have to just be spontaneous, take the risk, go ahead. So comfort with ambiguity is a competency which have kind of stayed steady, and I believe it will always remain steady.
Ambiguity is a bit of a concern when you come for a business education, because most of the concepts in business are ambiguous and people take a lot of time to understand that nothing concrete is going to come out of a classroom in any case. But what about you, Mr. Shriram? Do you feel something about this issue of competency?
Oh, I think there is enough and more that the universities have mastered in imbibing this competency, but it's all left to how much one can absorb, right? Some of these things comes naturally, some we'll have to force ourselves into it. We don't have a choice. But the one thing that I've found out of experience is clearly, you know, if I talk to this audience today, right, each one of them would be an expert. They would say, I have the highest marks on, I know what an underwriting is, or I know, what a top up premium is, whatever. But that's all information. I think he brought that context to data. But you have a lot of data, but that's just information. That's not knowledge. Now, whatever we do in an organization, the integrated thinking, that aspect of why are you doing what are you doing, right? How does your action result in something and that impacts the organization's business? The ability to think through all of those, to visualize all of those, because once that habit sets in, you would actually become a lot more effective on the job. You would actually be able to contribute, and therefore you'd be able to collaborate. You'd sink into a nice networking organization. Now, that integrated thinking is something that I would put a personal emphasis on to any B school grad, because otherwise, even during those conversations, even during those internships, it's all very pocketed knowledge.
So that's a good way, and this brings me, because we have discussed something which is to the mindsets, EQs and IQs, and we then discuss tech deceptions and how to get out of it. We move to competencies. Finally, I move to the last theme of what we are discussing, is that how do we bring all of it back into the classroom? And the best person to ask this is Amrita, because she passed out of these very classrooms 20 years back. And if I have to ask her that, what would you bring back now into the classrooms? What would you say?
Sure. So the skill part, obviously, the theory and understanding, domain knowledge, I understand everything. But I think what helped me the most is out of the class, projects, out of the class activities, which develop my character, which make me think audacious, which make me a decision maker, uh, which also make me very adaptable to situation, right? So I think I don't know much about a structured competency or follow it, but what I strongly believe is that uh, the alma mater is a place where you just don't take the knowledge, because knowledge currently is available on YouTube. It is not a dearth of knowledge anywhere right now. It is accessible on your fingertips. What is here we do is implement it. How you implement it, how structurally we are pushed towards a particular competency here through our courses, to our projects, and how diligently we give our 100% towards it, that leave a constant impact on me. So and one of the panelists is talking about a project he has done in the the day or college days, right, and in his MBA days. So that is the kind of impact. So when I joined distribution, my projects, some after, like when I'm in a fix at some point of time, 10 years down the line, when I have a team of 60 and 70, that point of time I go back to those era where I don't have much of knowledge, but I have a deep passion to understand customer. So that is what helps me. So I am not a kind of person who understand a lot of structure learning. I believe in unstructured learning, and I believe learning never stops. So when you go to a organization, the more adaptable you are, the more flexible you are, and the more receptive you are, that is who is going to build you.
Yeah, that's really very well said. That the bigger question is that we often understand that over the years that we study pedagogy and how people learn, is that most of the time people do learn when they do it, right? So one part is knowing, the other part is doing, and when you do it, you know it better. That is obvious, but in a stage 2 year theater that we run in a business school, the unstructured learning often comes out of the projects, the case study competitions, and live projects that the students would do into the industry. Uh, However, that's a bit of a thinking question to all of you, and you can all answer that question. However, during the time when they're here and when they are going to learn through doing, is it also not, they may get a certain opinion about what works for them and what does not. Is how do we bring whatever has happened into the past and show them lessons out of it? For example, how we do it most of the time is we have always focused on a pedagogy which is case centered, right? We hardly teach anything in the class in terms of pure teaching, but we bring in cases. We often tell our students that medical students are better off because they practice on live patients. Business school students don't get that opportunity. So how do we bring them closer to practices by opening and closing classes with cases? But over the years, our students have also complained that cases are becoming obsolete, in the sense that, and they have perhaps a more Western influence or Harvard influences than what is perhaps an Indian way of thinking and doing business. So we struggle. I want to hear your views, and I also struggle into it. That how do we actually bring this unstructured thing that Amrita spoke into the classroom? Do you have any suggestions that we can all hear, and do you have suggestions for them that how to squeeze in this unstructured learning in the most efficient way into this 2 years?
So maybe, can I go next?
Yeah,
Or
yeah,
are you
yeah.
asking the students?
No, I'm asking the panelists first. I am
Okay.
still yet to go to them.
Okay, so maybe I'll do a quick one here because I loved what you said about case studies being the Western way, and I do feel that case studies shape your thinking and how you think. But if you look at the Indian traditional way of learning across generation is through Shruti and Smriti. So to be listening and to be talking, and I am not sure how many of us now do it, or we might be doing it very unconsciously. So, I mean, one simple thing that we can do is all of us have relatives who are working in different sectors, different levels, different fields, different organizations. So, have we been anytime curious about what they do? Have we asked them deep, maybe 7 level, 12 level questions on what they do? And that is where the learning is. If we ask 10 people, we would get 10, and then you process it and then you bring it to your understanding and to your class. So this could be one way, but let's I would say experiment with this again, Shruti and Smriti, and see how where it takes us.
Yeah, Mr. Babre.
So I think one of the example I remember, because someone spoke about the engineers, it takes some tolerance for ambiguity is difficult, and they also, sometimes understanding a business concept also becomes a challenge for them. So what I used to do when there was a graduate engineer trainee batch used to join, I used to send them to a tea stall. I used to tell them, observe this tea stall for the 5 days, come back to me and tell me what are the value additions you are going to do on the three things: his quality of the tea, how you will improve; cost of his tea, how will you reduce; and how will you improve the branding of his particular tree? Can you give me a concrete suggestion on that? And once they give me complete this assignment, I used to tell them, now convert this into your job. Your job is also like this. How will you add a value to your job by using these three dimensions every time? Then only you are earning the salary which has been paid to you. Obviously, it is little experimentation and a little old model, but probably sometimes going back to the basics and applying this kind of a knowledge helps. And that's what I will suggest to the academicians, that it is better if we can add some kind of a experiential learning, and the most important thing, someone who can instigate and provocate them with these kind of a questions, coaches who can help them make understand how these things can be related to the business and how you can add the value to the business. That's just a small tip for the solution.
Sure, sure. So, because on your point on the medical students having this, but I think you're already aware of the virtual reality that's come into place. They don't no longer kill people and work on bodies, right? Now, I think we should probably influence, especially you're from IIM, right? So we should now ask people to build in case studies that we can actually use virtual reality to build. But on a serious note, when that's serious as well, I really love Priya's point on the ability to reach out to your own network. But what would drive that? The driver here for a B school student would be, are you entrepreneurial in your thinking? If you're entrepreneurial, great leaders in any organization, you've seen the guys who have gone to the CXO levels have been thinking and behaving as entrepreneurs. They know, they have the genuine passion, they would just get into the details of it. They would never stop learning. And those traits would actually kind of a long way. And, if you can start thinking and behaving like entrepreneurs, even during your college times, you would find your own use cases. You would find your mentors. You would find reasons to do a drill down study and model a business, right? Like I said, everybody has a role to play. Like the academia has a role to play. Organizations have a role to play. So do the students. So I think it's a fundamental shift in how you look at things, and what do you want in that end of the journey.
And just to add, also like, the study, the kind of material we are having, it is not that it is not having a touch of practicality to it. So if instead of, understanding the insurance by book, if you get a proposal form for a motor or a health, and go through it, it is this 3 pages that somebody I was discussing in the morning. The 3 pages is having a lot of knowledge, a lot of understanding how you perceive a customer, how an underwriter perceive a customer, how a customer should be presented, so what is expected out of it, right? So it is not that we don't actually need, as you rightly said, case study are obsolete at a point of time, but the instrument we use in offices are giving a lot of practical touch to it.
Yeah, I did not say case studies are obsolete. I just said that the reference points to some of the cases may not carry our context,
Yeah,
right?
right,
But
right. It is a foreign.
but cases bring out. You see, how we look at business education is that, uh, and I go back to where I started from, is that we want to make leaders who drive corporations. We don't want to make employees who run, and that is why lately sustainability and entrepreneurship has become two cornerstones. Because I'm just kind of winding it off this discussion, so I would like to point out a couple of things that we have been trying to do, experimenting, and I would want you to hear about it. The first thing that we are experimenting now is that we are re-examining our theory with what the job of a corporation is. You see, most of the theory in business school is written from the point of view that we all work towards shareholders' wealth maximization or owners' wealth maximization. We feel that the time has come to relook into the theories that it is not just the shareholders whose wealth we maximize, but we have to bring other metrics into the way we look into it. The second thing that we are doing is that we feel that business curriculum is not really worthwhile now if we don't bring in the coverage and the role that the government and regulations play into it. So we have recently, around 4 years back, started with the Center for Public Policy, and we try to bring in live projects from the government, which is implementing like the Mahatma Gandhi National Fellowships and similar such stuff, so that our students understand how do you liaison with government, how do you liaison with the regulators, and how to get the things moving forward. And the next thing is systems thinking, which we have kind of debated, written, and thought about it. We feel that we have to bring in some way of systems thinking into our students, and we are trying to bring it into all the courses that we run at the institute. And the last thing that we are experimenting now, I'm not really sure, is that we are bringing in a lot of physical, social, and political sciences into curriculum. We are trying, for example, there are courses on wisdom from Indian philosophy, to earth sciences and the Big Bang theory, and we are trying to bring in, and we feel that the depth of knowledge that you can get from anywhere would be much in there. So some of the ways that we want to change and move forward would be something like this in our way. So we had a long discussion. We covered 3 or 4 hour topics, and as promised, I've just done it in 1 hour 5 minutes, right? So we are bang on time. So that's a great achievement. Now I have, before you guys begin, I want to answer at least a couple of questions from them, right? Because it's at the end of the day from their benefit. If you want to ask any one of us anything, please go ahead and ask, and just go ahead and ask that, right? So I have 5 minutes or 10 minutes around that time. If you don't have anything, then we are done. Yeah.
So, how to be creative in the world of artificial intelligence and machine learning?
How do you?
How to be creative, stay creative, because
Yeah.
artificial intelligence and machine learning.
Don't
is-
use Chat GPT.
Exactly, sir.
Yeah. Anybody wants to ask?
I think the most important thing is challenge yourself continuously. What he said is the inherent attitude which you will bring. You will have ample resources to available, but after that, what after that? If you will keep on challenging yourself, your creativity and your true potential will start coming. If you are like, that's what someone said, measurement is the best impact. You are measuring yourself at this moment. I have achieved this year this, next year this, how I am going to do that, plus one factor which we call it. So if you keep on doing that, the creativity will automatically push you. I don't know how many of you agree, the grasping power during exam time is far better than in the normal times, right? Why? Because we are keeping pressurizing ourselves. We have a target in mind. I have to clear, I have to score this much.
And then the forgetting power also
Absolutely.
exponentially increases. Yeah. Once
So-
you have vomited it out. Yeah, anything
So
else?
I'll take that question, right? So can I ask you why did you even choose to get into that AI learning mode? Because if you know the answer to that, it's a lot easier for us to tell you how you can be creative.
Actually, I connected it with past because in the past we don't have artificial intelligence, but human intelligence was on the peak, and the most
Just
important innovations.
narrate in 2 words. Why did you choose AI?
Sir, because it's the future.
Right. So yeah. So if you're forcing yourself into something, assuming that this is going to give you a little bit of a mileage and a nice resume, that's not going to go anywhere. And that's nothing to do with curiosity, right? So if nothing to do with curiosity, then you can never be creative. Now, it's never too late, right? You've learned something. Can you genuinely try to apply that in any one real life situation, and not forcing yourself because it's a nice use case, but you'll have to believe in something and say, well, I want to explore this without guaranteeing yourself that I have to be successful in this, right? Innovation, creativity doesn't mean you have to be 100% correct all the time, right? And it all begins with curiosity, but it has to be genuine.
So we have time for one more question. Yeah. Yeah.
Good evening, sir. So, just for the question, in the session you mentioned that this generation is getting more transactional in nature of when applying job. But whenever someone from this generation goes for a job applying, the one question that frequently asked is last CTC. So, if things are good enough with his experience and knowledge, so that question I'm not very sure why it's been asked, and like company should hire him based on what he gives to the company an experience not based on his or her last CTC. So any opinion on that?
Yeah, maybe I'll take that. I think somehow it's developing into a passion of mine, compensation. That is not the only. I mean, firstly, it is not a criteria at all for employer to offer a job to the employee. The last CTC, several data points are sought. Last CTC is one data point. Your expectation on compensation is another data point. Internal parity is a third data point, and market parity is the fourth data point. Now, all these kind of converge together to arrive at compensation. So, if you feel that my last CTC was low and hence I'm getting a low entry into the organization, which is not true, because organizations also have to manage expectations internally. When an employee comes into the organization, it becomes, I mean, sometimes we do talk, although it is not supposed to be, but you know, the compensation figures are exchanged sometimes. So it is not, it is a threat to the organization if there is unfairness in compensation. So it's not true that only the last CTC, I mean, it becomes a parameter for hiring.
Try saying company standard. You'll get a job.
Yeah, these are. Anything else that comes to your mind, or we call it a day? Yes, or please don't. Right? It is very difficult to answer a question from an academician. Yeah, and coming from me is saying something. Yeah, Archana, please go ahead. Yeah. No, you can speak. You are trained to speak loudly.
Since morning I have been, what I have gathered is information is freely available. Students need to be more aware. Now, what we as a teachers and we schools we do to make them more aware?
Yeah, okay. See, my point of view is this, that you see, information per se doesn't convey anything. Okay, it needs people who are experts in not just understanding that information correctly, right, but also disseminating it in a way that is the right way to do it. And information per se that comes from people who have very little clue of what that information means and how to disseminate and what is the right way of understanding that information and disseminating it, will not bring in a generation of new leaders. So professors, right, who have the power and the time to gather that information, convert it into data points, and then convert it into new knowledge, which could be disseminated to their students, is what we do. That's what we get paid for, and that's what we spend our lives in, right? So just that wide wealth of information is not going to change anything in this world, right? It is a good thing, because earlier in my times I had to go to the library and collect CRISIL reports for the last 20 years to get just transition matrices of credit risk models. I specialize in credit risk. But now I just have to go to a database and it's available. It makes our lives easier, this knowledge. The mind that processes it is ours, right? And that is where there's an answer to your question. Anybody
As
else
two
wants to
academicians are sparring, maybe I would like to add one. So here, your question was how do me as a teacher build awareness? So I want to say that information is available, and there is hence awareness about that as well. But what I find like a gap now in many employees incoming, whether young or old, is the self-awareness. And I loved what Amrita said about business schools as such. They don't, they, while they build knowledge, but they build character. They shape thought process, they build character. And that cannot be, I mean, teachers are the only ones who can create that self-awareness. It's completely cannot be gained from a book or from a process or anything. So self-awareness and the ability to stay steady through all the rough and tumble of organization is what possibly you can get.
You're right, but just at the cost of closing it down, it's something like this, that the structure of the B schools are such, the way of education is like so fast and furious, and in just 2 years is that very little time actually on character building. That is why we are trying to integrate a lot of other sciences into curriculums. Let's see how this experiment goes. It's not just with us, but many schools all across the world are doing it. But that's for the future. I think that's time. And thank you so much for listening to us patiently. Thank you to all my co-panelists. I kind of really enjoyed taking this and doing this. Thank you so much, all of you. Yes.
Now, I extend my sincere gratitude to all the experts for sharing their invaluable insights and enhancing this enlightening discussion. Next, I would like to invite my colleagues to come forward and present token of appreciation to our esteemed panel.